Hi, I'm Vicky. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you some of my sewing essentials, some of the tools and equipment that I just couldn't create without. My first sewing essential is my vintage Singer sewing machine. So I probably do 99% of my sewing on this. It goes through anything. It goes through thick denim. I've made leather corsets on here, and it's, I think, from 1951. My friend Dave put my butterfly stickers on years ago when we shared a shop making wedding dresses back in the UK. I love it to bits. I chose this over an industrial machine, so I was looking at both at the time, but I ended up going with this just because it's more portable, and that actually proved true because I shipped it from the UK to Australia when I moved here. The other two machines I have are just a domestic overlocker and a domestic sewing machine. I only use them very occasionally, so the overlocker if I need to do some overlocking, and the I only pretty much use the domestic machine if I need to use the ruffling foot on that to do some gathering or make some ruffles. When I'm using the Singer, I've got this little guide attached to it, which the guys I bought the sewing machine from, I actually put it on there. I bought this from the company who did my sewing machine servicing and repairs, and they used to recondition and sell these back in Portsmouth in the UK, and they put this on there for me. So this is like a little, I think it's a quilting guide, and it moves in and out. So I use that to do my seam allowances, so I can do exactly the seam allowance width that I want to do. And I also use it for the width of my bone casings when I'm top stitching corsets. So it's a really super handy little thing to have, and if it's in the way I just lift it up and move it out of the way. Generally I just use this foot, which I really like because it's wider one side and narrower the other side, so I can use that to do some nice parallel lines of stitching if I need to. Occasionally I'll change the foot and use my zipper foot, and I also have this invisible zipper foot, which is, I haven't found one for Singer, so this was it's a third party one that comes with this part in different sizes to fit different machines. A friend found this for me. I used to get my domestic machine out to do invisible zips, and it's so much handier just having one that I can put onto my Singer now and use that here. So that's my beautiful Singer sewing machine. That bit of tape's just on there because the wood splintered a bit and it was snagging, so I've just put a bit of masking tape over there and that solved the problem. And the same, some of the metal's coming off here, so I've just got a bit of sellotape over there just to stop anything snagging on it. But given that it's from 1951, so it's way older than me, it's still going strong and it still goes through anything I need it to go through, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Next I want to talk about threads. The only threads I ever use, with the rare exception when I can't find the right colour, is Gutermann. Buying good quality threads is so important and will make your sewing so much easier. I'm actually going to do another video soon about my top tips for making your sewing look more professional. So one of those tips is to buy the best quality that you can afford, and that is so true for threads. Cheap threads snap easily, they knot easily. It's worth spending the extra money and getting Gutermann. They're my favourites. I also use this clear thread a lot, which I use for hand sewing, especially if I'm hand sewing on lace or other delicate things or beads and I don't want the thread to show. It's really hard to see. I have to wear my glasses when I'm using it, but that's really, really useful for hand sewing. Next is pins and pin cushions. So I've got 4 different pin cushions with 4 different types of pins in. So this pin cushion is just regular sewing pins, so these regular short pins. I don't use these very often. This pin cushion, on the other hand, is the same pins, but they're the extra long versions, and I find these really useful. I just find it way better to use the longer pins. It makes pinning quicker. So this one also has extra long pins, but these are really chunky, so these are great if you need to pin through lots of layers or some really stiff fabric. They're great for pinning denim and things like that. I often use these when I'm doing fittings with calico toiles because they go through the calico really easily. These ones are silk pins, so they're extra fine and they're great for not leaving a mark when you pin silk. Again, it's important to buy good quality pins. Cheap pins are blunt. I bought some the other day. I needed some new ones really quickly. I bought some and they were so blunt I could barely use them, and I just ended up throwing them away. So again, buy good quality pins. It will make your life a lot easier. And make sure you buy glass-headed pins where you can as well, because when you're ironing, you don't want the head of the pin to melt and leave a nice blob of coloured plastic on your sewing. So these pins and these pins both have glass heads. These ones have got plastic heads. I never put them in anything that I'm going to be ironing. Next is my air erasable pen. So this is like a felt tip pen which you can use to draw on fabric. It's got a really fine point and it disappears within 1 or 2 days, sometimes even quicker. And it's great for drawing really accurate markings onto your work. I use this. I use this every day. It's just brilliant. I actually prefer the Soline brand, which is a pink pen, but my local shop stopped stocking it, which I'm quite upset about, so I need to look for that online. But in the meantime, I've been using this brand, which is working perfectly for me. I also have some chalk and tailor's pencils that I use on dark fabrics, but I prefer the accuracy of the fine point on this one. Next up is my tape measures. I have tape measures that are in inches and centimetres. I was taught to sew in inches, but I work in centimetres as well, so I switch between the two in my head, so it's useful to have tape measures with both on. This is just a regular 60-inch or 1.5 metre tape measure, but I also find this one really useful because this one is 120 inches. It's 3 meters long. So when you're working on huge wedding dresses and long trains, sometimes having this tape measure this long is really handy. These are all the scissors that I use while I'm working, and I've got different scissors for different jobs. So these purple scissors are for cutting paper. These ones are for cutting plastic boning. These are my good fabric scissors for cutting most of the fabrics that I work with. And then these scissors are just for cutting sequin fabric or fabric with sequins on, because that blunts them really quickly. These ones are just the IKEA scissors, which cost $10 here in Australia. So I use them until they're too blunt to cut the sequin fabric anymore. And then they become just household scissors. Either out here they'll become paper scissors, or they'll go inside to get used in the house. And then I've got lots of these little tiny, really pointy scissors as well. When these are new, I use these to cut lace out with, because you want that to be really sharp and really accurate. And as they get blunter, then I use them for other things, such as cutting the threads on the sewing machine, or cutting threads as I'm hand sewing, or for other little jobs that a little small pair of scissors is good for. I've also got a pair of pinking shears, and then I've got these really tiny, really sharp scissors for really fine lace when I need to cut that. This is my pattern making ruler, which is really useful. This one's just in centimetres. I'd love to get one in inches as well, but I haven't found one here in Australia. I'll probably have to order one online. This is essential if you're doing any pattern making. It makes life so much easier. I don't use French curves. I tend to do my curves by eye, but definitely the pattern making ruler for straight lines. Another essential tool when I'm sewing is a good sharp unpicker, because however good you think you are at sewing, there's always going to be times when you do something you've got to unpick it. Or I do a lot of unpicking if I'm using pre-loved clothes to take apart and use fabric, or doing alterations, so a good sharp unpicker is essential. So this little thing is a loop turner. So it's got like a little hook on one end, so if you're making little tubes of fabric and you need to turn them through, this is a really handy little tool to help you. Next is my beautiful Alice in Wonderland tin, which is full of safety pins, various sizes, various colours, always useful for doing fittings and absolutely essential to take along to photo shoots and catwalk shows, because there's always something that's going to need a safety pin put in it. They're also handy for threading elastic and turning wider loops through as well. Ironing's really important as you're sewing. So for ironing, I like an extra wide ironing board, and I put a new cover on it regularly when it starts losing its padding. There's nothing worse than ironing something and getting like the crisscross pattern of your ironing board onto your fabric. So I regularly put a new cover on, and I tend to leave the old ones on underneath so it gets really good padding. I use a domestic iron, and I've got one that I can turn the steam on and off as I want to. So just having that control is really important. I also regularly use a tailor's ham and a tailor's sausage. They're so important if you need to iron and get into little corners and curves. that you can't do on a flat ironing board. A sleeve board's also really useful. I don't actually have one of them. I don't do many sleeves at the minute, so I just use my sausage for that. And then the last thing I use for ironing is these two clobs, which are made from silk organza. So these can be put over whatever I'm pressing, but you can see because they're silk organza, I can still see through it, so I can still see the piece that I'm working on underneath. These are really important if you're ever using anything with sequins on, otherwise your sequins will melt and stick to the bottom of your iron, and trust me, that takes a long time to get off. My last sewing essential that I'm going to show you today is my portable clothing steamer. So this is so useful to have for steaming things like tulle and veils and other fabrics that are just too delicate or too difficult to get onto your ironing board to press. And also I can pack this up, it's telescopic, so it's really easy for me to pack up and put in the car and take to photo shoots and take to fashion shows, so I can make sure everything is just perfect before it goes on. I hope you found that useful. I hope it's given you some ideas to help you with your own sewing. Comment below and let me know what your sewing essential is, what your tools that you couldn't create without are. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back soon with more videos.